Hello, this is Bret. Welcome back. We got the continuation of the reading on page 70 of the book, The Seventh Vial. This chapter is titled The Oath of the Angel. By the way, this is more of a reading of the book. I'm not commenting because I'm absorbing this information. Trying to just do an overview. This is going to be a study of the book exclusively without any commentary. At least to the best of my ability. I will comment here and there when something hits me as the Spirit leads, but for the most part, this is just straight up reading. The Oath of the Angel. The grandeur of the vision is heightened by the awful, solemn act which the august being who stood with one foot planted on the sea and the other on the earth now proceeded with great impressiveness to perform, quote, and an angel which I saw stand upon the earth and upon the sea lifted up his hand to heaven and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are therein. Excuse me, read that backwards. Quote, and the angel which I saw stand upon the earth and upon the sea lifted up his hand to heaven and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which therein, that there should be time no longer, unquote. Everyone qualified to consult the original will at once admit that our translation does not give the precise import of the angel's oath. Literally, quote, the time shall not be yet, unquote. The angel refers plainly to the time when some event important in itself and anxiously desired is expected by John as representative of the church should happen, and of which the angel had just spoken and been answered by the thunders which had disclosed the particulars of that great event. When then shall it be? Quote unquote, but, continues the angel, quote, in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants, the prophets, unquote. That it was some joyful event, to the church at least, whatever its aspect to the world, is undoubted from the term which the angel employs when speaking about it, the same word which is employed to denote the preaching of the gospel. It had been declared as good news. We learn farther from the angel's oath. The event had ere now been foretold. It had been declared, preached as good news to the prophets. To which of the prophets is there any of them to whom we find a revelation made, a revelation on oath, the consummation or the finishing of some grand epoch in God's government of the world, unquote? We find such a revelation made to Daniel, conveyed in terms and accompanied with imagery so very nearly identical with those of the vision before us that we can have no doubt the allusion is to that prophet In the last chapter of Daniel's prophecy, we find a time of trouble spoken of, quote, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time, unquote. But Michael should stand up as Daniel's people should be delivered. Quote, everyone that should be found written in the book, unquote. In the hearing of Daniel, one made inquiry at, quote, the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river. How long shall it be to the end of those wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished, unquote. I think that's not the King James, by the way. That is some other Bible. The epoch which was to bear a complex character, inasmuch as it was to be a period of exampled trouble and of deliverance equally unexampled, was then far distant. Accordingly, Daniel was told, quote, the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end, unquote. The vision of Daniel helps us to interpret that of John. In the words we have quoted, there is a reference made to a noted period in the Apocalypse. Quote, a time, times, and a half, unquote, i.e., a year, 2 years and a half, i.e., 1,260 prophetic days or years. The period, we say, is a strongly marked one in the Apocalypse, seeing it embraces the reign of Antichrist. And, at the end of that period of all these wonders of judgment and deliverance are to happen. This enables us to determine what is here meant by the mystery of God, which shall be finished in the days of the voice of the seventh angel. It also goes a great way to determine with certainty what the things were which the seven thunders uttered, but which John was forbidden to write, seeing we are informed in Daniel that they were to take place in the close of the 1,260 days. We infer that they were the 7 last plagues by which Antichrist was to be slowly consumed, and the length suddenly and fearfully destroyed. The history of the quote-unquote little book begins after the sounding of the 4th trumpet, from which period, speaking generally, we date the rise of Antichrist. The oath of the angel touching the finishing of the mystery of God in his destruction bore that it should not be yet. A full millennium had to intervene from the 5th to the 16th century. Not sooner should Antichrist reach his meridian, but having attained the height of his power. The 7th angel should sound, and then, as sure as God possessed almighty power and eternal being, Antichrist should be destroyed. There was a high propriety in the angel's appeal to these two attributes of the divine character. No power less than that which made the heavens and the earth could destroy so consolidated a system as the papacy. And he only that liveth forever could carry on through successive ages that series of events by which Antichrist should eventually be brought down. Nor was the propriety less of terming this great event the finishing of the mystery of God. We know not how long God's providence over the world in its present state shall last. But we know this, that the mystery of providence, that part of providence which the intricacies and perplexities with which it has abounded, has been a mystery to the wisest, shall come to a close when Antichrist falls. It is long since it was revealed to Daniel that there should be 4 grand epochs in the history of the world, marked off by the rise and fall of 4 great monarchies. That these should be preparatory to the kingdom of Christ, and that as soon as the 4th and last of these monarchies had fallen, that kingdom should be set up. The fall of the last monarchy was to form the completion of the scheme of winding up of the drama. The fall of the last monarchy was to form the completion of the scheme, the winding up of the drama, and when finished, the admirable wisdom with which its plan had been arranged should be seen, and all the mystery in which, to human penetration, it had been shrouded during its progress should be removed. This long predicted and much desired event should happen. John was assured by the angel on oath during the days of the voice of the 7th angel. Not longer was the patience of the church to be tried, and not longer should the Saracen be permitted by the instrumentality of his agents to deceive and destroy the nations. The 7th trumpet should sound the world's jubilee, the day of vengeance, and the year of the redeemed. The idea that it is the day of judgment that is here announced is inadmissible, but in respect that these scenes by which the close of this part of God's providence shall be signalized will be second in importance and terror only to those scenes amid which time itself shall close. They are depicted by imagery taken from the Last Judgment. This period will be a harbinger of the Day of Judgment. In reality, a judgment day to the world. Accordingly, it is predicted both in Daniel and elsewhere in the Apocalypse that then the dead shall be raised, that is, those whom Antichrist has slain shall stand up, not in their persons, but in their cause. that their innocence may be published, and his iniquity proclaimed, before he is cast into the lake that burns with fire and brimstone. The vision ends with an intimation to John to receive the book from the angel and eat it. He did so. Quote, "And it was in my mouth, sweet as honey, and as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter," unquote. To eat the book denoted the exercise of his mind respecting it. To understand a matter at once important and profound is pleasant, sweet as honey, but alas, the book contained heavy tidings to the church. It announced a period of 1,260 years of sorrow to her and of triumph to her foes. Quote, "And as soon as I had eaten," meaning understood, as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter," unquote. Once more was the voice of prophecy to be heard in the world before it should become silent forever. Quote, "Thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings," unquote. John was the last of the prophets, and this was the last prophecy. It respected the church's last enemy. And as soon as the prediction should be published, the volume of prophecy would be closed. John was not in person to publish these sayings to the world. He was a prisoner in Patmos. Kept there by tyrant. He was a prisoner in Patmos, kept there by the tyrant who now governed the world. But though he had been permitted that very day to leave the shores of the lonely isle, he was too full of years and sufferings to journey through the countries and proclaim what was now made known to him. He was soon by death to rejoin in glory that Lord, whose chosen the best beloved companion he had during his humiliation on earth. But being inspired to write the visions of Patmos, he is prophesying to this hour before peoples and nations. And by the church, he has ever been held to be one of the greatest of those prophets which, though dead, yet speak unto her. How infallibly certain how infallibly certain is it that popery shall be brought down. God has not only prophesied, but sworn to overthrow it. At the commencement of that grand scheme of providence, which embraces the four monarchies, the angel who stands upon the sea and the earth lifted up his hand to heaven and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, that after a times and a half, it should come to an end. At the commencement of the fourth and last monarchy, the same oath was repeated in the same solemn manner. The oath of the angel must be fulfilled. Oppose it whoso list, nor is God slack concerning his oath. Our impatience often provokes us to think that the vision tarries, that events pass slowly over this stage of time. We measure the duration they occupy by our own little span. We are like one viewing the motions of the great bodies of the firmament at the distance of the earth, to whom they seem to creep slowly across the sky, whilst were he nearer, he would be dazzled by the rapidity and irresistible force with which they move onward. So we judge of the events of providence. We are to measure their progress by the standard here set up by the angel, God's eternity. 1,260 prophetic days have been allotted to Antichrist. To that term, not a day, not an hour, shall be added. When it expires, his knell will be rung, and a universe shall shout over his fall. Okay, and that ends the reading here, and we'll continue on page 80 with the measuring of the temple next time. Bye-bye.